Hi, homeschool friends. Welcome back. We are near the end of Unit 5 on juggling multiple skills. And in this lesson, I want to talk about one of the top 3 topics that homeschool families bring to me, and that is attention. And in this lesson, I do not want to talk about ADHD or ADD or the criteria for diagnosing it or interventions like counseling and meds. I want to talk about how everybody, every human being, including you and me, has issues with attention. What are some of the common underlying issues that go with that? And what are some strategies that you can do right now, today, to make things a little better? So the first one, in just a moment, I'm going to share my slides with you. And I tell you that in nearly every lesson, especially the ones where I use slides. So you may have wondered, why does she say that? Well, it's not because I need to remind myself what's coming up next, though I'm getting older, sometimes I do. But that's not why I do that in these lessons. It's not because I think you need it. I mostly do it out of habit because I've worked with kids with anxiety and attention problems for so many years that it just kind of is part of my habit of telling you what I'm going to do and what we are going to do ahead of time. So kids with anxiety is based in the future, and especially kids who have panic attacks. They need to know what's coming up and that it's going to be safe. And so even the little things, I tell my students and my own kids, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do this in 5 minutes. We're going to clean up and get ready for lunch. In a half hour, we're going to leave to go to karate lessons. Tomorrow, we're going to grandma's house. Those heads up really help kids' brains to process what is actually going to happen and that they're going to be safe. Kids with attention issues may not have that innate fear of the future, but they definitely have issues with transitions. Some kids have a hard time separating from tasks. They get into their thing and they don't want to stop, but it's time to move on. Others have a hard time initiating a task and they're kind of stuck until we give them that help to get started. Many kids with or without a diagnosis have issues with transitions. That's that in between the stopping and the starting. And some kids get lost, they get distracted, and they get into something else and they completely forget that they are in a transition to something specific. And others just lose track of time. They have no sense of the passage of time. Transitions are a big deal. So let me share my slide with you. All right, so I want to let you know that in here, I want to talk about the 6 different things that I have seen as common underlying issues in kids paying attention. And I want to let you know, this is not coming from a specific research study. I read a lot of research and I've studied attention for many years. And what I'm telling you is true from research standpoints. However, what I'm going to share with you are my own experiences and observations and strategies that I've come up with to help improve attention. Now, most behaviors that kids do either are seeking attention or they're avoiding something. And perhaps the most common attention seeking behaviors are, first of all, developmentally, when kids are toddlers, when they're late 2s and into their 3s, they will often throw tantrums to get their own way. mainly they're using a different communication style than telling you what they want, and they're throwing a fit. In that case, you are training them to use communication in a better way. And the best way to deal with a tantrum is absolutely do not give in. And secondly, walk away. You don't have to leave the room, just don't look at them. Don't pay attention to them, because most kids will figure out that they need to use a different strategy to get your attention. Now, I'm going to switch back here because I want to share a story that happens in my own world. When kids are in elementary school, they often want your attention at times when it's not a good time to give it to them. And one of my pet peeves is when I get on the phone, almost invariably, a kid will come and interrupt me. And you need to know, I have social anxiety disorder myself. I don't like phones. I don't talk on phones. I don't answer phones. They go to a voicemail and they get a call back from me when I've been able to ramp myself up to make that phone call. So honestly, I don't talk on the phone very much. And when I do, it's usually pretty short, unless it happens to be a mom who's really struggling and in a crisis. So my kids know, because I've had to set boundaries for them, that when I'm on the phone, they should not interrupt me. Either have a morning meeting, have a family gathering, whatever you need to do. It can be one-on-one, it can be as a group, but set the boundaries on what you want to expect when you're on the phone or when you're doing a task that's important to you. Like many of us have home-based businesses. What are the rules or the boundaries that you want your kids to follow when you are unavailable to them? So what I found in my phone issue is we have two things. Number one, if they walk in the room, they should not interrupt me verbally or just say, "Hi, Mom, how's your day going?" So we have a deal that when they walk in the room, I will nod my head and smile, and I will either give them a thumbs up or a 1 minute, I'm almost done. That way, we've communicated non-verbally. They've walked in the room. Maybe they need me, maybe they don't, but they know that I know they're there. If something's really important or an emergency, and sometimes there's cases where they really do need to get your attention. I have them either write a note on a Post-it note, like help, and then Johnny, the name of the kid that needs my help. Or they can go like this. And that tells me, oh, I need to get off right now. And I close the call and I get off and go help. So I just wanted to share that with you, because there are cases where our kids need our attention and others where they're just doing attention seeking behaviors. Setting up a queuing system and letting them know ahead of time what your cues are and what they mean. Now, I want to go back to attention seeking, because there's a term that we've used in the homeschool world for many years. I didn't create this term, but I remind myself of it occasionally because I tend to like busyness and doing many things. The word is twaddle. I heard it many years ago from a homeschool mom who was giving advice on how to juggle everything. And her advice was, avoid the twaddle. Don't let twaddle take over your homeschool. Here's what twaddle means. It's the unnecessary activities or things that have little to do with learning and more to do with shiny object syndrome. I am a crafter. I'm going to switch back here. I'm a crafter. And I like my laminator. We've had a Cricut, but my daughter took it when she moved out from the house. I'd love to have a Cricut, but I know that those crafting things can be my twaddle because I like to make things. My computer is definitely twaddle for me much of the time because I only have one kid in the house left, and I like to make games. I like to make things for learning. And so sometimes I lose myself in that. I'm trying to help others, but my son needs my attention too. So I have to be very aware of how long have I been on the computer making something, or how long have I been crafting with my rubber stamps and playing, and it has nothing to do with learning for him. By the way, one of the things I'm noticing nowadays is technology is everywhere. That's great. Technology can be amazing. Truly, it can. But I've seen that many parents use technology to babysit their kids. They do everything learning by technology. And I know as a learning specialist, learning starts with moving. And if they're on technology all the time, even bigger kids are not moving enough. Their brains just don't kick in the same way. And so be careful of fun things that look amazing. They look so professional and they look so colorful and fun. But always ask yourself, is this going to get my kid to learn more effectively and efficiently? Or am I spending a lot of time making a matching activity that they're going to do in about 10 minutes, not want to do again? And I just spent 2 hours making it. I just basically wasted 2 hours because they're going to do it and it's done. So always think ahead. What's the most efficient and most effective way to get my kid to learn? I will tell you what it is. Make them make things. Let them do things. So I'm going to share my screen again and let's talk about avoidant behaviors. Kids usually avoid things that are too hard or too boring. And sitting down to do worksheet after worksheet is extremely boring. Even for kids who love to do worksheets, it's not very effective learning. And so if you're one of these moms who comes to me and says, my kid has sat for 2 hours and is still looking at a worksheet that should have taken 10 minutes. I'm going to come away again. First of all, that worksheet may be too hard. You might not think so. You might think it should only take 10 minutes. But to the child, depending on the look of the page, it could look too hard. Does it have too many words on the page? Is there enough space between the lines of print? Is there enough white space on the page? Is it very colorful, but very busy? Maybe they can't find what they're supposed to do. Maybe they don't recall the directions, even if you think the directions were simple and they should know it. One thing I've learned over the years is should doesn't really mean anything when a child can't or won't. Something else is going on. So the other thing is, if it's too boring, the easiest, fastest thing is to turn it into something multisensory. Every worksheet can somehow be turned into a game. I promise you, I've done it and I still do it. If it's too boring, add a rice tray. Instead of writing spelling words, 10 spelling words, or writing the spelling words 5 times, use a rice tray. Instead of doing reading 20 some pages, I just learned about this little technology. It's called Speechify, and it will read any text to a kid. If your kid has pretty severe dyslexia, Speechify might be well worth the licensing fee, just so that they have that choice that they can either read it themselves or they can have it read to them while they're reading it. The other thing, advice on if kids are avoiding doing school, is have a backup plan, because some days, especially with dyslexia, there's inconsistent days. One day they're going to know something, the next day they are going to act like they've never seen or heard this before in their lives. Have a backup plan for those off days. Set your instructional curriculum, and then your backup plan should always be something easy, something fun, something alternative on those days when they don't remember. And always be ready to reteach as if you're teaching it for the first time. That's a hard one when we think our child should know something, is reteach it as if you're teaching it for the first time. One more way that you can deal with avoidance is if it truly is too hard, and that is a worksheet or a workbook is your only option right now. Make a copy of that if you can. And today, do it together with your child. You walk through and do it. Demonstrate for them. Have them work it with you. Then tomorrow, present the exact same worksheet or something else that's either in a exact same information in a different format, or the exact same format, only the next lesson. Math UC is one curriculum that does that. They have many pages doing exactly the same concept or skill, but you're going to get it again on the next page. So in your backup plan, teach it. Then tomorrow, do the same thing again, only let your child do it independently. I can almost guarantee that the next day they will be able to do it just fine. All right, so let me go back to my slides again. Sorry about the back and forth, but this one I want to give you very specific ideas and strategies that you can use. All right, if your child is moving constantly, they're fidgety, they move their hands a lot, or they just run. They run everywhere, they don't walk anywhere, and they run and they jump and they climb and they do all kinds of moving things. Instead of making them sit to do their learning, embed movement into what you do. That's the best option I can give you. Go outside, make a task where they're running around. Make it, if you have to do sock basketball, take an empty small wastebasket from one of the bedrooms and roll up a bunch of socks into balls and give your skill or your fact or your word. And when they do it correctly, let them try to throw the sock into the wastebasket. Anything that involves moving will help with moving when they're supposed to be sitting at a table to do paperwork. All right. Impulsivity and defiance are absolutely issues that I've heard about, seen about, and experienced in our own homeschool. And they are a bit more difficult issues to deal with. If you have a child who has impulsivity or they're defiant, you're welcome to message me, but I would prefer to go in more detail in a future course on impulsivity and defiance and the bigger behaviors that go with ADHD or some of the other neurological developmental disorders. So there are absolutely strategies that you can use to train a child to be less impulsive and to be more cooperative and less defiant. I'd love to give you those tips. So message me, that might bump it up in my list of which courses I'm going to make next. But anyway, I hope you've gotten some tips on how to help your child to pay attention and get more learning done and happening. So I will see you in the next lesson. We're going to finish out the whole course with Unit 6 on taking care of you, because I will tell you right now, in homeschool, you are it. Dad may help, or dad could be the core instructor and mom may help, but whoever's the main instructor, you are it. It's hard. Some homeschools may get a substitute, or the other parent may do a lesson, but mostly if something happens to you, the homeschool changes and alters drastically. So come back for the last unit and we'll finish off our course in how to plan your homeschool. All right, see you in the next lesson. Bye.